Hello friends, I'm Kendra Winchester. Welcome back to my channel, and today is another episode of my Appalachian Lit series. This is a series where I read 3 books and then I tell you about them, and these are books that I have enjoyed typically. I have read some books about Appalachia that I haven't enjoyed, and sometimes that's why there are long periods of time between the different episodes. But I have a wide range of authors to share with you today because I also have like this anthology situation happening. But yeah, so let's just jump right in. To the topic. So it's been a while since I've updated you all or like rehashed like what is Appalachia, why is it important. So we're going to do that a little bit because I am from the region of Appalachia. I'm from Appalachian, Ohio, the tri-state region between West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. So my family has spent the last 5 generations jumping back and forth the Ohio River. So I tease and I say we're dual citizens of Kentucky and Ohio because of that. And so I still I see myself also in Kentucky culture as well because that's where my family's from. So anyway, I really love sharing Appalachian Lit. I love reading Appalachian Lit, but not all Appalachian Lit is created equal. A lot of times I will see big name publishers putting out books that are the stereotypical like hillbilly elegy-esque stories where Appalachia is this terrible place and you can never find happiness until you leave, and like all of these sorts of stories that just make me so frustrated because they're full of lazy stereotyping. So I want to use this series to elevate literature that I think illustrates Appalachian people as complex characters, well-rounded characters who are not perfect, but they're fully human. And that's something that's really important to me. If you want to know more about the region of Appalachia and what parts of the country it consists of and different things, you can check out the first video in the series where I talk about that, but I will link the Appalachian Regional Commission down below, which covers a lot of that and all of their educational resources they have on their website. So this particular pick that's going to be the first one I want to share with you stems from something that happened last year. And last year we had on Reading Women a challenge for our Reading Women Challenge. One of the prompts was to read a book set in Appalachia. We had a lot of people just skip the prompt or say, why would I want to read a book about Appalachia? Or paraphrasing, why would I want to read about a bunch of racist, ignorant, white trash people? Wow, I know, right? Like, intense feelings from people just by having the prompt, read a book set in Appalachia. Some people would say, isn't that overly specific? But considering there are 25 million people and that's the size of a moderate-sized European country, I don't think it's terribly specific. It's a challenge, right? Expand your horizons and all of that. And if I had asked you to read a book set in a different region of the United States of a similar size, but wasn't as like isolated and rural, I feel like there would have been a different kind of response. And that's really why the prompt exists, is because when I go and say I'm an Appalachian, I have to brace myself because people often have very negative reactions of who I am. I've even had Appalachian people who have left Appalachia, and when they find out that I'm Appalachian and just come out and say it and I'm not ashamed of being Appalachian, they stereotype me with the own stereotypes that they received as an Appalachian person when they left the region. So it's very strange. There's a lot of complex issues going on there. But one of the reasons I want people to read about Appalachia is because there's a lot of rich history there that's often left ignored by the wider literary landscape, right? So one of those is the fact that the wonderful Bell Hooks herself is from Kentucky. It's like when people start talking about the Rust Belt and how terrible Ohio is, and I'm like, Toni Morrison. Can't forget that, right? Like, so anyway, Bell Hooks is from Kentucky, and she is, I believe, descendant of Appalachian people. So like she lives just outside of the Appalachian region in western Kentucky is where she's from, but she still is a hill person, if that makes sense. She still has a lot of those cultural roots, and so she talks about that with this because of her heritage and where she comes from. And so Bell Hooks wrote this poetry collection called Appalachian Elegy, Poetry and Place. She also writes an essay collection about being from Kentucky as well. I haven't got my hands on it, but it's not available in audio. I mean, reading this in print was a lot because of migraines. But I wanted to read you some sections because this introduction is exactly why I want to do this series and illustrate the wide, amount of diversity that is Appalachia. And so she says here, the joyous sense of homecoming that I experience from living in Kentucky does not change the reality that it has been difficult for Black rural Kentuckians to find a voice to speak our belonging. And she talks about how it's difficult for Kentuckians to be seen. She says, most important, it has been difficult to speak about past exploitations and oppressions of people and land, to give our sorrow words. Those of us who dare to talk about the pain inflicted on red and Black folks in this country, connecting that historical reality to the pain inflicted on our natural world, are often no longer silenced. We are simply ignored. It is the recognition of that pain that causes a constant mourning. She says on the next page, she says, in essays in Belonging, A Culture, a Place, give voice to the collective past of Black folks in Kentucky. They include family values that cover the ethics of life in the backwoods and hills of Kentucky. Poems of lamentation allow the melancholic loss that never truly disappears to be given voice. Like a slow, solemn musical refrain played again and again, they call us to remember and mourn, to know again that as we work for change, our struggle is also a struggle of memory against forgetting. As she talks about in the introduction of this collection, how the pain of Black Kentuckians was ignored by white Kentuckians for so long, but also then in the broader sense that the fact that they exist and they have been living there for so long is also ignored. And so there are many facets to this, and she talks about the racism that Black people in Kentucky have faced and the heritage of that, but how they too equally belong there, and how that is also their heritage. And I think that's really important, because whenever I talk to people, they're just like, oh, isn't Kentucky super white? And I'm like, well, yes, but that doesn't mean there aren't Black people there living, and we need to see them, we need to acknowledge them. And there is a lot of movement that Black people's history in Kentucky and in broader Appalachia should be more recorded. And so I will link some resources down below of Black Appalachian and Appalachian movements, so you can go check that out. I also highly recommend the documentary Hillbilly, which features bell hooks as well as another author I'm going to talk about here in a second. Specifically, bell hooks talks about the experience of being Black and Appalachian, though she doesn't identify as Appalachian, but like what that experience is like in regards to her heritage, because that is where she comes from culturally. And so I really appreciated that, because it's something that I think people need to hear, is that all too often the wider world ignores the fact that Black Appalachians do exist. And so this is just the start of that. I'm going to read her essay collection on that for a more broader sense, and this is just the beginning of my journey into that. There's a poetry collection but he coined the term Appalachian and just talks about being Black and Appalachian and what that looks like. So that's for future research, but yeah, so I'm really excited about that. And there are some Black Appalachians in this book as well that I'm about to share with you. And that is Step Into the Circle, Writers in Modern Appalachia, edited by Amy Green and Trent Thompson. This is out from Blair Publishers, and they sent me this copy. And I love this book. I finished it so quickly, even though I read it in print. And so like Crystal Wilkinson, she is a Black woman from Appalachia who writes gorgeous novels. I've not read any of them yet, but I have read some of her essays. It also features Silas House, who writes an essay in the collection, but he is a gay man who lives in Kentucky, in eastern Kentucky. He now lives in Berea with his husband, and his husband Jason has a piece in here as well. I think Jason Howard. And then this is also something that a lot of people don't realize, is that there are a lot of Indigenous people in Appalachia. This chapter on Marie Junaluska is written by Annette Sanook Clapsaddle, and Annette actually has a novel coming out in the fall, and I will put a photo of it here, and it is out from the University of Kentucky Press, and it is the first novel by a registered member of the Eastern Band Cherokee Nation. And so I am so excited for that novel. Very excited. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't realize as well, is that there's a wide range of people and authors in Appalachia writing great literature. So I really enjoyed this anthology and all of the wonderful authors that it includes. And for me, these little portraits that the other also Appalachian writers wrote about other Appalachian writers that they admired was a great way to celebrate writing in Appalachia. And it was just, I think, an important thing that a lot of people may not realize is the rich heritage of writing that is in Appalachia. And I really appreciate how diverse this anthology is, because we need more representation like this about Appalachia. Also, this is one of my favorite photos. So, like I said, I pointed out Silas House, and so that's actually my next book is Southernmost by Silas House. Now, I have been reading LGBTQ poetry and fiction from Appalachia. It's an anthology that came out from West Virginia University Press. And I read Silas House's short story in there, and I fell in love with that short story. And, you know, I kept thinking about it. And while some of the other stories and poetry in there just haven't stuck in my mind as well, that story, so many scenes from that story have stayed in my mind. And I think that it's just something about his characters and the way that he writes and tells these stories. He's communicating so much feeling along with plot and themes and all of those different things, but there's a unique way he communicates feelings, I think, in his books. And so to that point, I think some people might find his work a little sentimental, but I personally don't. Maybe that's because how I also think and feel. There's a character in this book, Justin, who is the main character's son, and he is a highly sensitive person. And he feels all of the things so much all the time. And that was me as a child. And so I think the book also reflects that it feels a lot of things all of the time. So this book is about Asher, who when he's a younger man, rejected his brother when he came out as gay, and so he hasn't talked to his brother in 10 years. And so when there's a flood and two gay men arrive at his doorstep seeking shelter, he welcomes them in, but his wife does not. So as a series of events happened, and he and his wife get a divorce, and she takes primary custody, and then Asher grabs his son Justin, and they flee to Key West to try to find his long-lost brother and make amends. This is really about Asher's journey and to coming to terms with the fact that he has a lot to answer for. He has a lot of hate that he has spread in the name of goodness that was not loving or kind or good. And I think that that is something that is important to point out, is that there is harm being done in situations like this. And when Asher is like, no, we need to care for these people, and begins to change, he also has things he has to answer for as well. And I think that's an important part of the novel. He goes then to Key West, and he learns a bunch of lessons. Well, that's kind of what happens. But he learns so much along the way, and this really is, you know, it reminds me of this interview I was listening to several months ago, where they talked about how coming of age, people can have several coming of ages at many different ages. It's not just when you go from youth to adulthood. And I feel like this is a big change, a coming of age for him, like a middle-aged coming of age for him, in learning that the world might be different than he thought it was. And so I really appreciate that part of this novel. The way that it unfolds, the ending is just, I think, perfect. And the way that the plot goes and everything. So I really enjoyed this book. I'm going to be reviewing Silas House's original trilogy that is being reissued by Blair Publishing. I bought this one for my birthday, and so thanks again to Russell, Jacqueline, and Robert for recommending this book to me all separately, which was like impressive. Like, I was like, okay, 3 people have told me to read this book. I will read it now. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it's so well written. I love Silas House's fiction and just the feeling that he creates. But yeah, I really love that book, and I cannot wait to read more of his work. So those are on the horizon. I have a bunch of books downstairs I've grouped together for my Appalachian Lit. But yeah, more will be happening in the future. Yeah, we'll just see. I'm very excited. This is one of my favorite things that I do on BookTube, so... Anyway, alright, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.